I want to say maybe a teaspoon for a jar like that, but you just put it in, give it, probably not even. You can always add, and the great thing is if it's too thick, well, it just dumps some out, puts more water in. I mean, whatever. It's 2 ingredients, everybody has a different consistency they like, but generally you want to mix it, and it's going to take about a day to homogenize. So, and you're going to want to use it before it's ready. And a lot of the times it will just go and clump in the middle, so maybe you want to stir it, or if you have a thing like this, shake it or whatever, just to every once in a while. But it's going to take about a day before it's ready to use. But I've had this stuff mixed for months, so it's pretty good. And then what consistency? It kind of depends. That is kind of the consistency that I like to use, I guess. So whatever you think you like, you just kind of got to experiment. And that's the beauty of like the tissue and stuff, is you can back coat with that, and you can practice and stuff. And if you ruin a paper, it doesn't make a difference. So when I back coat, you want a surface. This is not the best thing to do because it's got these ribs. And if you see on this paper that I did, you can see some faint ribbing there that you get. But once you start to, what's that?
That's cool. Some models, it's good.
You might want it, yeah. But
we should probably back coat. We got like 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. So
I don't want to go to the next class.
All right. Well, it goes away though once you fold, because you're going to start to wet fold again, and it'll take that most of the stuff away. So it's not that big a deal. So when I back coat, I start from the center, and I'll usually get a good amount, and then I'll kind of work out to the edges or out to the corners. And you just want to make sure that the paper is pretty well saturated.
So you don't get the paper wet beforehand?
No, if you ask Michael, he'll tell you to do that because. Yeah. So the reason is when the moisture comes into it, then the paper expands. But you're getting it wet right now, and it's going to expand. And the method that I use, you'll see why that kind of doesn't matter so much. So I get it pretty good, and I just kind of go out to the edges and then kind of fill in these gaps. It's just kind of what I do. Everybody has their own technique. And you can see, so it was like really wrinkly, and now that the moisture is starting to set in and stuff like that, you see it's getting like less and less. It's starting to flatten out. That's really why I don't wet it first. I kind of haven't had any big problems. Cool. So it's pretty good and saturated. And now, a lot of times, if you just left it at this or whatever, if you flattened it out and everything, I found that as it will dry, it will shrink up. And then when it does, if it's not stuck to the surface, then it will shrink and it will warp and it won't be very good. So the technique that I use is once it's kind of fully saturated there or whatever, once you painted it, I just go ahead and lift it up, and then it's kind of awkward angle to do it like this, but I kind of just go and flip it right over like that. So, and then I just go and I kind of start from the same thing here. You don't really need much methylcellulose at this point, but kind of just work out some of the bubbles like this. And I found that doing it this way will allow the paper to stick to the surface very well. And so once it's drying, it won't pull and distort, so you'll have a good surface. And you can put a little more on the back if you want. I just kind of keep the brush wet, and then just kind of get down so you can get any little bubbles that you might see, like a little bubble there. Just kind of work it out.
Do you recommend any specific type of brush over others?
This is a brush that I got at Blick's for like $1, and it's worked really well.
Michael Fuss uses that wider brush that you were showing.
So I have one of those. I've tried it. This works This works really well because I can just kind of get in there. But, you know, I guess my technique is, as you can see, kind of go to the corners and then like work in, similar to how I did it on the other side. And you just kind of look and make sure that you don't have any bubbles left. And then that's really it right there. So that if you're just doing a single sheet, you're pretty much done. And then you can just let it sit. It'll actually dry pretty quick. It should dry in a few hours. If you want to be safe, you can leave it overnight. So if I was going to make a sheet of duo, do you have a sheet of duo right there?
Or Garmita?
Yeah.
It's over here.
So if you were going to make a sheet of duo, for instance, if I wanted to have brown on one side and you know, gray on the other, like this sheet I made, which was one side blue and one side purple. What I would do is, yeah, I know. What I would do is, you would lay the other sheet on top, but you want to make sure, that's when you want to make sure it's wet first.
Okay.
So, you know, if I've got this, I might go and do it on this side, and then once the other one's done, peel it up, and then I just kind of lay it over the top, right?
So you
I do this first.
size each one separately.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I do. You can just spray the second sheet with water if you want. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'm already here. I'm already doing it. I kind of just do that. So then you just make sure they're well pressed together, and then go over it again. You know, make sure there's no air bubbles or anything like that. But it's pretty straightforward. So this one's done. You can just let that sit, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to shrink or distort. And when you know, come tomorrow, or this I'm sure will be done later tonight. When you think it's done, give it like another hour. There'll be a little water, there'll be a little moisture, and I've done it, and you peel it off, and then it just shrinks. Then you get this wrinkle, and it ruins everything. So give it another hour.
So if you want a back coat, do you just lay the other sheet on top? If you're back coating, do you just lay the other sheet on top and it's like
You want to make sure it's wet first.
just wet?